Here we are. It's first Tuesday of 2022. I'm Char Nolan. Happy to be here with you. I'm going to start off from the very top and let you know that we are in the throes of a kitchen renovation. So there may be some background noise, but I want to let you know that I have rolled towels around windows and I have covered up radiators and anything else. And I've also spoken to the lovely people working on our house. So hopefully you won't hear too much for this hour that we'll be together. Totally loving the treasure trove of questions that you have all sent. Excited to talk a little bit about mushrooms and then get right to your questions so that we can start this new year off on a good foot. So happy 2022. So we had a little bit of technical difficulties, okay? But I think that we have figured everything out. And hold on for 1 second. And now we are totally good to go. Let's see. Hold on a minute. Hold on. StreamYard, we've got to look for your questions. So first, I think, Patrick, if you can hear me, we're going to start talking a little bit about mushrooms. I think that many of you know that I live in southeastern Pennsylvania, near a town called Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. And it is considered the mushroom capital of the world, where mushroom farming began in about 1868 by very industrious Quakers and other people. And although now mushrooms are grown all over the world, Kennett Square still claims itself as being the mushroom capital of the world. So a couple of things, because that mushroom assignment that you all do is really a key component in learning how to cook without using oil and feeling familiar with using mushrooms. So I bought these mushrooms on Saturday at my local grocery store. And this isn't how you should buy mushrooms if you can avoid it. If you have a mushroom store or grocery store that that sells mushrooms in bulk, then that's probably a really good way to go. However, a good grocery store will have some brown paper bags for you to put your freshly chosen mushrooms into. And the reason is that the paper will absorb the moisture from the mushrooms and that they will stay really, really fresh for you. So these I bought on Saturday, and you can see their color. And I also bought these on Saturday, and they do look a little bit better. They're not slimy. They don't smell. Remember that when you're cooking with mushrooms, you want to smell them to make sure that they smell fresh. And if they have a slimy feel to them, you probably don't want to buy them. And the other thing is that I'm a person who cooks with stems because why not? But you can pop the stems out and save them, put them in the freezer to make a stock or whatever. And rather than using a mushroom brush, I have a soft toothbrush, and you can just dust off any dirt or hay particles or whatever. And brown paper bag's the best way to go. As soon as you get home, pop these out of the container and then put them into a brown paper bag. So I think that we are good there. And I'm just trying to find everyone. So I'm landing a helicopter right now. So just give me a second, okay? Let's see. And there we go. All right. Okay. So the first question is, what are the staples you keep in your kitchen to maintain variety and avoid boredom in plant-based meals? Well, you know what, Mary Kay? I have been plant-based for more than a dozen years, and I don't think I've ever been bored for one single day. Pre-planning is a great key and a great tool. If you can plan out a month of meals for you and your family or whomever, that's a great way to add variety. Magazines often have wonderful ideas. There are some great YouTube videos to follow. But you never let boredom set in because you know now how to add spice and herbs to change a dish. You can take rice and beans and go from Mexican to Italian to Asian to wherever. So it's using spices that are fun and delicious for you. I also suggest that if you have friends who are also plant-based, to do a meal share with them, and that certainly will avoid any boredom whatsoever. So, best recipes to help a non-vegan family enjoy plant-based meals. Best sauces, meal planning, simplicity, etc., etc. So it's so easy to take your traditional family favorites and flip the recipe. So an example might be, instead of making a bolognese sauce for your beautiful pasta, you could grind up or chop or mash some beans so that you have that same texture that you might have, or you could use tofu that has been maybe marinated and then sauteed and then added to your sauce so that the sauce has bulk. So what I used to say to myself in the beginning was, okay, I really like my grandmother's lasagna. How am I going to make that delicious for me to enjoy? So I'll give you an example. In Rip Esselstyn's Raise the Roof lasagna recipe, he uses sweet potatoes to make sort of like a ricotta type of a filling. So what I do instead is I use white Japanese sweet potatoes, and I mash them up, and then I treat them like they were actually ricotta, and then I add chopped basil and nutritional yeast and garlic so that it has the look and the appearance of being a ricotta-like substance. So you have to think about your favorites and then ask yourself, what's the best way for me to switch them? Because if you're a family who loves if you're a family that likes a hamburger, you're going to find a terrific veggie burger recipe that you like. And you're going to use the same roll. You're going to use lettuce and tomato. You're going to use ketchup and mustard or whatever. So you're going to flip that recipe. And another great thing, I think some of you know that I don't use oil when I cook. So I have an air fryer that I love using for making French fried potatoes that have zero oil in them. So I think it's just zoning into what you like, what your family likes, asking them for their input, and then seeing how you can flip that recipe. So that was a great question. What is the best way to keep kale, Swiss chard, greens, etc.? And the wet paper towel thing isn't working for you. Oh, Joni, you're new to plant-based cooking. This is the best news I've heard all day. So your best bet is to not wash them because that's adding more moisture to them. So when you put them in your paper towel, you're going to have a stretched out paper towel, and then you're going to put 3 down and then roll, and 3 down and roll, so that they're not touching each other, but that their moisture is being absorbed by the paper towel. And then you're going to put them into either a container or a Ziploc bag or whatever. But I have had kale last me for like forever. And even if it gets wilted, it's not the worst thing, because then you have the perfect kale for a delicious salad. So that's what I do. That's what works for me. And it's also a cost-effective way to maintain kale. I mean, it's $1.99 a bunch here in southeastern Pennsylvania. It's organic. And I go through 2 or 3 bunches a week, and they stay relatively nice. So that's what I have to say for that. That was a great question, by the way. I took the Plant-Based Ultimate Pro cooking course last year and was advised that no oils whatsoever can be used for plant-based. Now that I'm taking the plant-based dessert course, I'm advised that coconut oil, olive oil, and some other oils are allowed. Okay, this is like a whole ballpark of conversation and beliefs in what you eat. So if you look at the chocolate ganache torte that's in Plant Pro, it has coconut oil in it. Can you make it without? Yeah, you can. It's going to turn out differently. And here's the thing. You want to have the experience of meeting the objectives of your recipe. And my friends and neighbors were so happy when I was in Ruby, even though most of the recipes that I made were oil-free. My friend Dana got that beautiful chocolate torte. So I would, if you're in Everyday Vegan Desserts, we all know that Fran Costigan is an expert in everything that has to do with vegan baking. I'm not a vegan baker. I don't cook without oil. I don't bake without oil. And I always act as though, oh, I forgot to put the oil in, and everything to me comes out really, really nicely. But many of the physicians who are behind the plant-based movement have varying opinions about why you should or shouldn't use oil. Personally, myself, I don't use oil, and I have to say I am a really good recipe developer because of what I learned in the course and because I come from a family of chefs. I grew up in a restaurant. Restaurant was my playground growing up. So Fran can answer that question for you. Your desserts will come out really terrifically. And, if you ever read Fran's book, she has a really good no oil chocolate cake recipe, which I have used many, many times, and the recipe comes out beautifully. So I think staying the course would be interesting for you. And if you have any no oil questions, give me a ring. So that's good. Very good question. Is there a sample or recommended outline of how to get through the courses by the deadline? Well, it comes down to being organized in your kitchen. My suggestion is this. Pick a unit, go through each recipe, and write down all of the ingredients. And what's going to happen, you're going to find out that you're going to need 3 bulbs of garlic instead of 1, and that you're going to need canned Marzano tomatoes for 2 recipes, and then draw a shopping list from that, because staying on top of everything and being organized is the best tool to have in your kitchen. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. Before Ruby, I never even used a mise en place. And now I can't even think of starting my day or a recipe with some kind of organization. So that mise en place, the organization of your skills, creating that shopping list, and staying on track and having fun. You just want to have a ton of fun. That's my one suggestion to everybody. You can always contact student services and speak to one of our representatives, and they can certainly help answer that question. But staying on task and being organized are the 2 things that you have to do, because that will just make you want to zoom through the course. And then the other thing, I hear this from a lot of students, is that they enjoy the feedback so much that they can't wait to do their next assignment to hear from an instructor about, where they did extremely well, or where they might want, an area of opportunity to help further develop your skills and things like that. So stay the course, and most of all, have fun. That's always my recommendation, is to have fun. So many recipes call for mushrooms, and your husband is allergic. Well, this is what I do. I'm not allergic to mushrooms. I happen to love mushrooms. However, if you're looking for a similar flavor and maybe a texture, what I do is I either dehydrate Kalamata olives, or I'll buy some and add those to the recipe if it calls for mushrooms. And it just kind of gives you that umami that you're looking for, and adds a little bit of saltiness and a little bit of texture. And that's what I would recommend. And you might want to try it. It's tons of fun. And if you're wondering where you're going to find dehydrated Kalamata olives, they are all over the internet. And they're the same price at the purveyor as they are at Amazon. So if you want to support a small local business, go to the purveyor. That would be my recommendation. Okay. This is such a great question, Alex. Hi, how are you? What recipes might I start with practice that are under 10 minutes? So if you're organized in your kitchen, and you have that mise en place done, you might be able to do a recipe in under 10 minutes. However, what I sometimes like to suggest to students is to work in stages, punch holes into the project. So maybe you don't have time tomorrow because you're going to be busy. So make your mise en place tonight, put it in the refrigerator, and then when it is time for dinner tomorrow or your assignment, you have everything all ready. So you might have to work in segments, or as I like to call it when I have taught time management, is to punch holes in the project so that it eventually gets done. And also, 10 minutes isn't a very realistic time. I suffer from the 20-minute syndrome. I think I can be anywhere in the globe in 20 minutes. And a long time ago, the reality was that I couldn't be in, let's say, Kennett Square in 20 minutes, even though in my head it's 20 minutes. So I think having a realistic base about time and how you utilize it is a really important tool. But Alex, that is a great question. Oh, struggling with knife sharpening. You're taking the Plant Pro course. This is from Mary Ellen B. So here is my suggestion to that question. First of all, the unit on caring for a knife in Ruby will be a real eye-opener, because really and truthfully, did you ever sharpen knives before Ruby? I don't know. So I have two good knives. I have a Shun, which I really love, and it's beautiful, and I'm afraid to use it. And then I have a knife from Cutco. And I thought that Cutco was sort of like Rompopil. And then I bought one. And when you buy a Cutco knife, every month or so, you get an email from this really nice man whose name is Patrick. And he'll say, I'm going to be at the such and such hotel. Come on down and bring your knife, and it's free. But when that guy Patrick isn't around, this may seem like such a silly toy. Look, it's from Emerald Lagasse. It has a suction cup on the bottom. And this is really easy for me to take when I teach classes on the outside. It suctions to the table, and then you can easily sharpen your knife. The other part of it is that you should never put your knives in the dishwasher. You should never let them soak for too long. The best way to clean them is by hand with some warm, mildly soapy water, and put them into their proper carrying case. If you are using a whetstone, it depends what you're going to cut. So cucumbers, for example, you might want to sharpen your knife at a 10-degree angle, whereas if you're doing something tougher skinned, you might want a 20-degree angle. So what I want to say is, don't get caught up in the technology. Learn your cuts, which is very important. And I happen to have this here with me today. I don't think you can see it really well, but it is one of those Fred products that has all of the angles and all of the cuts and the inches and the sizes. And I think I have mentioned to you previously that I would go to H Mart and I would buy big, gigantic bulk carrots, and I would practice and practice and practice. So practice your knife skills, use your knife, sharpen your knife. After I use my knife, I sharpen it so that I know it's at the ready for my next kitchen adventure. And let me just tell you, kitchen adventure taking on a new meaning, because my kitchen is now in my living room, and only I know where everything is. Anyway, hope that knife question was helpful for you. And this is from Marilyn. I hope that was helpful to you. This is from Gail M. Hi, Gail. What type of plant milk would you recommend for soups? And my answer would be anyone that you like. I make a lot of my nut milks, and we'll talk about that in a little while. So sometimes I can make them to be a little bit creamier and a little thicker. And I prefer using a plant milk that has no added oil. So for example, if I'm not making my own oat milk, Pacific has a really good unsweetened plain oat milk that has no added oil to it. So that's just another key. There's a very good Ruby unit that I have sent to Patrick that is, how to make your own plant milks. So you might find that very helpful. And just one interesting point. I was at the grocery store the other day. I was at Aldi. I love Aldi. I shop at Aldi when I teach classes because in low-income neighborhoods, there's always an Aldi and the prices are good and it's a familiar thing for people. And I was at Aldi and they had Califia Farms barista milk. and it said unsweetened. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a bargain. And when I turned the label, there were 150 calories in it, primarily because it was filled with oil. So if you're looking to steer away from oil, make sure that you use a plant milk that has the texture and consistency that you like, but that it doesn't have any added oil. Hope that was a helpful question for you. Oh, hello, Emily. I'm a vegetarian, but don't eat a very balanced diet, and I'm nervous about cooking without refined oils because I worry that the food won't be satisfying, both physically as well as emotionally. What are some of your favorite tricks to make satisfying foods? Well, I'll say this. The unit on the no oil saute is probably the golden key to really learning how to cook well without oil. And ways to create delicious flavors, not burning your garlic, letting the mushrooms do their thing. You know, mushrooms are 98% water, so you want to let them evaporate and let all that steam out and have those delicious flavors. I haven't cooked with oil since 2010. So I think that I have done a good job. And my students who I teach in the community often have different varying degrees of lifestyle related illnesses and are always surprised when they come back with a recipe that tasted good and didn't have oil in it. So I think that you just have to give it a good college try, and we're here to answer any questions and also share with you some of the different techniques that we all use when it comes to cooking without oil. Herbs and spices are your new best friends. That's all I can say to that. Okay, that was a great question, by the way. Please discuss the term plant-based as an alternative to vegetarian. This is from Mark S. Hello, Mark. And how do you explain and understand the significance of the newer term over the former term? Well, it's easy. A vegetarian is someone who still consumes milk, dairy, and eggs. They don't eat anything, as Dr. Esselstyn would say, that has a face, an eye, or a mother. The word vegan usually pertains to someone who, much like those of us who are plant-based, who doesn't consume anything, again, back to Dr. Esselstyn, that has a face, mother, or an eye, except for potatoes. He often says that. So it's kind of a political hotbed right now in the arena of being vegan or being plant-based. When you're plant-based, you're a vegan. Your primary focus might be on you and your well-being, but what comes after that is an awareness of the environment, an awareness of, of animals, and an awareness of everything around you. So I'll give you an example. I used to wear leather shoes because leather shoes is what I knew. And I think about after being a plant-based vegan for about 5 years, I thought to myself, why in the world am I wearing these leather shoes? So I think that there's a gradual embracing of being plant-based and being a vegan. And my hope as somebody who's a plant-based practitioner is for the twains to meet so that there isn't any further discussion or friction about the two. But whether you're a vegan or you're plant-based, you're still not eating animals. And that's the bottom line of everything. Hope that was helpful. Very good question. Oh, hello. This is a great question about different brands of piping tips. And this was a question that I actually sent over to Fran Costigan today because really and truthfully, I'm blessed and fortunate that she's my friend and also a colleague because I can call her with any question. So I will send you the response that she sent to me today, or Fran, if you want to pipe in. See how I did that? If you want to pipe in, feel free to answer that very, very interesting question. And Fran has answered those. So there we go. Thank you so much, Fran. And this is from Kathy K. Is it necessary to have a gas grill for the Plants Plus grilling segment? I have some in-kitchen grill pans with a Cuisinart Elite Griddler. Is this sufficient? I don't know the answer to that. That would probably be a great question for customer service. I think using either propane heat is probably different than using the heat from the griddler. But you can check with customer service, and I'm sure someone in the office will be able to answer that question for you. But that's a really good question, by the way. Okay. This is from Victoria D. Oh, it's so nice to see so many people here today, by the way. It's always so much fun. What is your favorite product to use to replace gluten-free flour in recipes? So here's the thing. So I don't think anyone knows this, but my father lost his eyesight when he was in his 50s. And my mother said to him one day, Jim, you're going to drive me crazy. You've got to get out of the house. So she sent him to the Lighthouse. And the Lighthouse is an institution that works with blind people. And my father was already a wonderful cook, but he learned to cook at Lighthouse. And he cooked with his ears, meaning listening to food, and he cooked with the sense of touch. And so when you are working with gluten-free flours, the sense of touch is a very important thing. Is there not enough water? Is there too much water? Should I add more flour? So I think that those are a couple of things to consider. I love making my own oat flour, which is gluten-free, except the one important thing is remember that not all oats are gluten-free because the oats may be cross-contaminated if they're made in a facility where wheat is also processed. So, for example, Quaker Oats now, as you may know, they now have a gluten-free variety, as does the king of all, Bob's Red Mill. I did want to show you this. This is a buckwheat flour. This company, PEREG, if you go online, they have a multitude of amazing nut and gluten-free flours, and I love working with them. Easy thing to do with these is they have a Ziploc bag. They're easy to store in your freezer, and I'm just fond of this brand. And here's the other thing. I got this at Walmart. Okay, I'm not a Walmart fan, but every once in a while I like to check in off hours where there aren't a lot of people, and I like to see what's going on there. And in their flour aisle, they have a whole plethora of fabulous flours from this company. They have almond flour. Aldi has almond flour. Lidl has almond flour. And for those of you who are not familiar with Lidl is a competitor to Aldi, and they have just landed in the United States on the East Coast, and it's a pleasurable, fun way to shop, economical, but also very high quality. So find a flour that you like, develop a sense of, feeling when you bake. And I find great success making my own flours by using my handy dandy dry grain container that fits under this is from Vitamix, and I've had it this is about 10 years old. And the difference is that the vortex goes in the opposite direction, so that when you put your grains in here, instead of things going down like they do if you're making a smoothie in a regular Vitamix, the grains will come up and they rotate so that you don't get that. Like if I make an almond flour, one time I made an almond flour in my regular Vitamix and I wasn't paying attention, and it turned out to become the best almond butter I'd ever had in my life. But this is great for making flours. It's great for making smoothies. And back to the question, it's also very good for making doughs because it can also knead. So as you know, I'm not a baker. I'm a rustic baker. I make things that are brown and rustic and earthy, and to me, they taste delicious. So if you don't have one of these, put it on your wish list. But I have to say that I love using it. So that's that, and I'm sticking to it. All righty. Hello, Chef Char. Hello, Melissa. And do I make my own plant milk? So the answer to the question is yeah, because it's cheaper. That's the primary reason why. Um, I have had an almond cow, which is a machine that takes, nuts and makes it into a delicious plant milk. Ruby has an excellent chapter on making your own plant milks, and so does the Minimalist Baker. My suggestion is to do a couple of things. I like to soak them in cold water for at least an hour. If I do it overnight, it's even better because the next day I can pull off all of the skin and from the almonds, and it just makes the milk even creamier and smoother. And then the other thing about it is that I use a ratio of 1 cup of nuts to 5 cups of water. Sometimes I'll put dates in it, sometimes nothing. Sometimes I'll put vanilla in it, but you never ever want to over blend it into your Vitamix. And I do think that in this case, a high speed blender would work the best because if you over beat it, you're going to get wallpaper paste. And I find that not drinkable. It is good for baking, but so 1 to 2 minutes, and then you're going to put it through a cheesecloth or a nut bag. And another time we'll talk about what to do with the leftover, uh, excuse me, leftover almonds. Um, but don't overbeat it. Use a nut bag, and soaking is the best thing to do. So I like almond milk, but I love oatmeal just because it's the cheapest of all of them to make. Also, probably when you think about the antioxidants and the fiber that is in almond milk, even though it gets broken down, it's probably a pretty good solution. Let's see how we're doing great on time. This sounds good. What is one piece of advice? This is from and Sophie K, one piece of advice you wish you had when you started on your culinary journey rather. Well, I wish I was 40 years younger because if I was 40 or 30 years younger, my life would have had a very different trajectory. And I probably would have been the happiest that I've ever been. And also the most productive because there's nothing really more fun than cooking beautiful food made from the earth that you get to share with family and friends. And, so often in the world, we hear the expression food is medicine. And I always think of Mary Poppins when she had to put sugar to make the medicine go down. So my goal is not to have food be medicine, but food to be delicious so that it's enjoyable. And I'll just share with you that, I've had like many, many careers. And I was a teacher at a Quaker school. And we had a birthday club, and someone said, "Oh, Teacher Joanne is vegan." And I was like, "What the heck is that?" And it turned out to be that I didn't make fun of Teacher Joanne because she was a lovely woman, but I had to go to Whole Foods and find a vegan cake. And I think that I have spent the last 12 years of my life making amends to people because there is only wonder about being a plant-based vegan and meeting wonderful people who are like-minded. And I think that, yeah, I probably wish I had started this much, much earlier in my life because I think it would have been fun, even though my playground as a preschooler and elementary school student was the back of the house at my grandfather's restaurant. So that was a great question. Thank you so much. This is from Emily. Is it okay for our mise en place to not prepare items such as cutting avocados for the photos so they don't brown in advance, just to set the full avocado in the photo on the prep? Well, when you look at the meaning of the word mise en place, I believe it translates to at the ready. So personally myself, when I'm looking at mise en place photos, I want to know that your next step will be to make everything. So if you're worried about that, plate it the way or measure it, display and portioned. And then I would put it into a plastic bag with the avocado pit which will help decrease on any oxidation. If you're using it for a garnish, I would only put out half of it. But again, remember that mise en place means at the ready. That's a great question. It might be a good political question at some point in time. Thank you so much for that. This is from Christy R. Thanks for being here. Can you recommend a specific brand of pasta for purchase in general grocery stores? I would love to find a go-to pasta that has a good texture and is gluten-free. So we're putting up the information about a company called Bio Nature, which is Italian, and their subdivision of their gluten-free is called Jovial Pasta. And this company was invented by a husband and wife. A member of their family needed to eat gluten-free, and so they started Jovial divisions. However, as a dedicated Aldi shopper, and I don't work for Aldi, but I just like to shop there, this black bean penny pasta, and it must be bronze cut because it has really rough ridges on it so that it takes a sauce really, really well. This is $1.29 at Aldi, so if you have an Aldi near you, that is a good thing. And if you're a Trader Joe fan, Trader Joe just came out with this product that they cannot keep in stock. It's Hearts of Palm pasta, and it comes like this. It's already cooked a little bit, but it's so good in a pan with a little marinara and a bunch of vegetables, and it's terrific. And the other thing about it is that this is also a zero sodium, zero oil product, and there's also zero sodium in this. So Bio Nature makes Jovial pasta, and Jovial gluten-free pastas are incredibly delicious. They're made in Italy. Even the gluten-free ones are bronze cut so that you have that nice, rough edge for your sauces. And this, I want to say, is a fabulous, if you have already made the cashew bechamel, this is really, really wonderful because the color contrast is really nice, especially with the greens in it. I always add little greens to mine, but it also tastes really, really delicious. So I hope that's helpful to you. Sometimes it takes experimentation to find a brand that you like. Jovial also makes a really good gluten-free manicotti shell. So you might be interested in that, but that's a great question. Happy to answer it for you. Does your course discuss inflammation? Are most of your recipes targeted to reduce inflammation? Angela, that is a very good question. I don't know what your specific diet is like, but remember that a lot of inflammation comes from heavily processed foods. And because there are no processed foods in the course, hopefully this will work for you. If you are someone who has a sensitivity to nightshades, then I think that you would have to find recipes that meet what your requirements for that type of diet are. But just keep in mind, if you stay away from the processed foods, you're going to feel much less inflammation. So hope that's helpful to you. What is your favorite book for basic recipes, equivalent to Dory Greenspan's Every Day, but for plant-based recipes? Well, my friend, Dr. Monica Agrawal, she's an amazing cardiologist in Florida. About 2 years ago, she implemented a plant-based menu for her patients. And she has just become a student here at Ruby. And today she sent me a picture from Ruby, and she said, "Oh, I love your hair in this picture." And when I was reading it, it said, my two favorite cookbook authors are Bryant Terry and Jane Esselstyn. Bryant Terry, because I love what he stands for. And Afro-Vegan is my favorite cookbook of his. And Jane created the cookbook with her mother, Ann Kryl Esselstyn, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease Cookbook. And I'm going to take a step back here. I'm one of four. I'm the second oldest. All of my siblings have heart disease and diabetes. And here I am. I don't take any medication. I try to live my best life, and I eat a lot of plants. So for me, eating plants is where it's at. And that's why I love Jane's book a lot. It certainly helped for me to develop my own recipes that I've published in various magazines and publications. And Jane has a new book coming out this year now, I can say this year. And I'm featured as one of the women wellness warriors. And my recipe is my Nona's chichi bean pasta, which I ate growing up as a child. So whole food, plant-based, no oil, SOS free. Good question. Thank you so much. Oh, but if you're a baker, you've got to get Fran's book. I can't get my mind around the oil concept. Okay, I can cut down on the oils. So Nancy, in the Plant Pro course, there are recipes with oil in them. So I think that this all depends upon how you want to embrace it. If there is a no oil recipe, it should be done without oil so that you can develop that skill and hone your skills. I say do your best work, enjoy it, and give it a try because, once you stop eating oil in your food and you go out for dinner or something like that, and you eat something with oil in it, it almost tastes distasteful. Now, that's just me, but I have a bunch of friends who eat the same way, and we're like, oh, we're not going there again. They use a drop of oil in their soup or whatever. So give it a go. You're going to be fine. Hope that helps. So, oh goodness, Christian E., you have a two-parter here. Can you give more advice on cooking with tofu? I know it needs to be pressed and ideally marinated, but I still struggle with the chewy texture. I see recipes that make you want to crumble it and bake it. Does that do it? I'm an air fryer person. I love cooking with an air fryer. So marinated, crumbled up tofu in an air fryer. And we're going to talk about air fryers, I think, in a minute. But I started out with a 2.5 quart basket in an air fryer made by Dash. And I line it with coffee filters so that food debris doesn't fall through the little cracks in the basket. But here's another confession. I feel like we're having true confessions today. I never ate tofu before I came to Ruby. And when we had to do that assignment of the roasted tofu, I was like, oh my God, who is going to eat this? And that recipe was like the icebreaker for me. And if you follow that recipe each and every step, you will grow to love it. Cut it into little spears or chop it or cube it or whatever. And, for a year and a half, I worked on a CDC grant in North Philadelphia where the per capita income is $15,800 a year. And the men and women who came to my classes for those 18 months grew to love tofu. And they had the same exact philosophy that I used to have. So that recipe is a great recipe to go. I'm not saying you have to get an air fryer. You can roast the tofu in your oven. Make sure you put it on Silpat or a piece of parchment paper so that it doesn't stick. But I think you might like that. I also like it in chili. So hopefully that helpful to you. That was a great question. Okay, we have about 15 more minutes, so I'm going to go through these. Oh, She Glows, Angela Glidden, wonderful book, Canadian. She does great work. So Lisa V, that's a very good cookbook. And part 2 on tofu. My friend says freezing and unthawing makes it more meaty. Is that true? Would you need to extend pressing time if frozen? I've never frozen tofu before because it is something that, I don't know, it's kind of like a staple. In the olden days when you used to keep eggs in your refrigerator, well, tofu in my house is the new eggs. But I think if you go to the tofu unit, there's something about freezing tofu, but don't quote me on that. I think you're going to grow to love tofu. That's all I'm going to say. So this is such a great question from Christopher. How do you best saute and fry with water stock? So here's the thing. If you use too much water, it's going to steam, especially with things like onions that have a lot of water in them. So Again, back to that no oil saute unit that we have, where we're featuring mushrooms. Remember that if you are allergic to or don't like mushrooms or whatever, using something like a zucchini or a summer squash, yellow squash, will work really well and help you because they have a very similar water content. Um, so you want a hot pan and um, since we have set up my kitchen in the living room, I'm using my induction stove. And I noticed over these last few days that you put the readout of what you want your temperature to be, and it's been so helpful. So I think understanding your pan, knowing the heat of your pan, knowing the size of your flame are other things that also make a difference. Remember, for example, when you're sauteing garlic, you want a low, slow heat because you don't want to burn it, but it's still going to come out really, really nice. So not too much water, not too much water. I use about 30 cc's after everything has sort of gotten to where I want it to be. So hope that's a very good question, by the way. So Lisa L has a very good question about the demand for plant-based chefs. And, it's also become another discussion hotbed because so many people who have no interest in being plant-based are opening up plant-based restaurants or inventing plant-based foods because it's becoming a really good business venture. And, your opportunity at Ruby helps you create the foundation of where you want to go. So, yes, I think there is a demand. And the other thing is that it is incumbent upon you to market yourself for people to understand that Ruby really is a school. And so I wanted to, I love looking at all of your photographs. I learn so much. Sometimes I'm like, what is that comic book doing next to the mise en place? And then sometimes I'm like, oh my God, this is the best photo I've ever seen. So these are, let's see, these are some photos of mine that I did when I was a Ruby student. This was from, I think, putting it together, the raw assignment. But what I wanted to say about the photos is that when you're a Ruby student, you have the opportunity to take beautiful pictures that then become part of your portfolio. So, for example, go to Moo Cards, make that dozen where you can use 12 different pictures. So when you hand your business card to someone, they'll be like, oh, nice picture. And then you have that opportunity right then and there to say, oh, thanks. That was an assignment when I was a student at Ruby. It is my no oil saute mushrooms. And yeah, it's one of the things that I make. So you have to kind of market yourself. You have to make the experience, embrace who you are. And I always say that when you take your photos, that you want to become one with your photo and create that portfolio, because when you do become a plant-based chef, you've got that portfolio for making menus, for making your website, if you have a website or whatever. So seize every moment, but take really good pictures. Remember, direct light, if you're up close, 45-degree angle. If you're taking your mise en place, you want to do a flat lay, or sometimes called an overhead. So that might be helpful to you. But yes, to your question, plant-based chefs, the new thing. New, and you're part of it. Okay, let's see. Julia, another good question here. What opportunities could come out of this course with no other formal training or college degree? Well, the world is your oyster mushroom. I mean, I think that a lot of it depends upon how you embrace these studies and how you go after the prize, so to speak. I graduated, or I finished Ruby in 2015, and I was like, hey, I got my Ruby certificate now. And I'd always, prior to that, I worked at Whole Foods Market for 10 years. And my first job after leaving Whole Foods was to work in a meal delivery service when they were in their infancy, not as they are today. And I worked with so many chefs that they always thought I was a chef because, remember, I grew up in my grandfather's restaurant. So I think that, yes, there are many, many opportunities. You just have to believe in what you do, love what you do. And, I have this wonderful, wonderful position with the Free Library of Philadelphia at the Culinary Literacy Center. And I just want to give a little piece. Okay, we have 6 minutes. Never say no to an opportunity. So here's what happened. My boss was this very well-known, almost celebrity in Philadelphia. And she called me up and she goes, I don't feel like doing this demo tonight. Can you do it for me? I was like, oh, yeah, sure. And that one experience led to me working at another branch of the library, being affiliated with the Charlie Cart, and having so much fun. And I just kind of think that you never say no. I'll give you one more example. My boss, she's like eloquent and smart and just an amazing woman. She was like, I don't want to do this radio show today. You want to do this radio show for me? And I was like, sure, because you never say no. And I did this radio show, and during the commercial, the interviewer said to me, do you write as well as you speak? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, but I can send you some writing samples. And for many, many years, I was the vegan beat reporter for a website. Am I the best writer in the world? No. But do I enjoy interacting with people who are interested in the plant-based movement? Absolutely. And why did that happen? I didn't say no. So that would be my one little piece of advice. So this is from Maria. Hey, thank you for this session. You're welcome. I have always wondered, what should I consider when choosing to use a rub or marinade as a prep to roast meats or vegetables? Well, I'm going to tell you what I use on vegetables. And, I see in a lot of the roasted vegetable assignments that sometimes you use too much stock or broth. And what happens is that it ends up steaming your vegetables instead of roasting them. Whatever your favorite spices are, use them, love them, embrace them. If there's a lot of salt in them, decrease the salt. Just because. Keep away from the oil. In the roasted tofu recipe, there's the recipe that includes liquid smoke. If you're not a fan of liquid smoke, use some smoked paprika and other things. You might find that fun. But do what you like and then see how you can make it a little bit healthier. Hope that helps. Okay, we have 4 more questions. Oh my gosh. Jeepers creepers. Oh, you know what? Jerry Ann L. Hello, Chef Nolan. Can you talk about plating and food and using white plates? I left it in the car because I went to the dollar store this morning and bought the most beautiful white plate. It was square. Square plates are in right now. The white will contrast and show your food so beautifully so that everyone can see it. If you're in the new course that we're offering, the plant-based update, there's a whole unit on taking photos. And when you see the difference between food taken on your grandmother's china that had a little border with some flowers around it, you can make the same dish. And maybe you should try this at home. Make a dish and plate it 2 different ways, and you're going to be wowie zowie Uncle Howie over the beauty and contrast from using a white plate. Dollar store, thrift shop, best place to go. Let's see. Leslie E., I think we answered the question about the flowers, but I do love this company. Make your own. And let's see. Didn't get to the question about the air fryers, but there is a link to that. One last thing. A couple of weeks ago, when I went out to this mushroom store / farm, the lady said to me, oh, don't buy dried shiitake mushrooms. They all come from China, and no one's doing them here right now. I just wanted to let you know. And I was like, I felt like I was like hearing some top secret information. So this morning, I was at the grocery store because things really are easy to find. You just have to be a bit of a ferret. And I'm sort of laughing to myself because several years ago, one of my sisters and I went to London together. And all she kept saying to me was, "Oh my God, Charlene, another grocery store?" Because I'm fascinated by grocery stores. So, anyway, these are dried porcini mushrooms because in my kitchen I have two coffee grinders rather. One is for coffee and the other is for my spices because I didn't think my husband would like um, the smell of fresh turmeric in his coffee. Anyway, I was like, oh, Buona, they're a local mushroom farmer. Oh, wow, I was so excited. And I threw it in my cart. And then when I got home, I was like, oh, they're made in China. So, not that I have anything against that, but I just want you to think about, we think we're eating local, supporting local. If you are having trouble getting mushroom powder for the seitan recipe, my suggestion is to either buy or dehydrate your own mushrooms and then put them through a grinder of some sort, and you will make a beautiful mushroom powder. I have to say that we have a store here. It's called Nuts to You. They have everything in the world that you would ever want. So you don't have to go to, a spice company or whatever. It can be very expensive. It's sort of like $7 for 4 ounces. So this is much, much cheaper, much more economical. And if I don't use them, I'll put them in the freezer. Let's do one more question and then we can say adios because I know that everybody, okay. Okay, Holly P, you win the golden ticket. When you air fry without an air fryer, what do you use? And the answer is nothing. So here's the thing. I like using these little baskets, as I said, because the food debris doesn't fall underneath the grate that's kind of there. I happen to be a person who likes dry, crispy food, and your air fryer does exactly that. If you don't have an air fryer and you happen to have an oven that's convection, that will work really well for you as well. I think that, again, going back to that veggie burger, when you air fry a veggie burger, specifically one that you've made that might be oil free, once you get it on a whole wheat roll with lettuce and tomato and condiments, you're not really going to miss the oil. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I apologize if I didn't have time to answer everyone's questions. You know that you can always email me either through student services or my first name, Char, Char, @ruby.com. I'm always happy to answer a question for any new students who might be here today. This will be so much fun. And I'm sending loads of good wishes and wishing all of you a great day. And most of all, enjoy what you do and eat healthy, delicious food. Have a wonderful day and Happy New Year.